Okay, so we talked about some of the reasons that people believe that the New York Strunculus, whatever it's called, HEPA, whatever that thing, is the modern Techelet, right? The combination of the fact that when exposed to sunlight, it creates the blue that's similar to indigo. The fact that they found large stores of it, of the shells of this, and proving that it was something that was used for dyes and several other reasons. As I said, though, there were, and this is, I think R Jonanthan did a very nice job. This is his summary from Wine Torah of the 4 different approaches to poskim who don't accept it. One is arguing the merits, right? Some poskim are just not convinced by all the evidence. We'll see some of those arguments. We've seen some of them already. But there are, in addition, 3 fundamental critiques that certain poskim have that aren't about the merits of the argument, but about what?
We don't use our intellectual.
Right. So, as he said, the 3 are what he says. One is rejecting the discovery of unneeded as an unneeded intrusion in the status quo. 3 is rejecting the discovery because Mesorah trumps all, and 4 is requiring a level of proof which exceeds that of the scientific method. And I think it's important to think about these issues because they really speak to broad methodological assumptions about how halacha works and how evidence works in halacha. So, if you look right at the beginning, right, you get right off the bat there are 2 different Mesorot of. So we said, right, the first time this really came up in modern times was the Radziner Techelet, right? There was 2 issues. One was, did the Radziner get the right Techelet? The second was, even if he did, would that matter halachically? So the Radziner had a conversation, had a correspondence with the Beit HaLevi, with Rabbi Yosef Dov HaLevi, Soloveitchik, the first. Right, no matter, there have been many since then, obviously, many Yosef Soloveitchiks since then. R Yosef Soloveitchik is actually not a Yosef Dov, but most of them are Yosef Dov. I think his second name is Yosef, right?
Yeah, Yisrael Yosef.
Yisrael Yosef. I assume he goes by Yosef Soloveitchik because that's, the family name to go by.
Did they do that on purpose?
What?
Not call him Yosef Dov?
Probably. I don't know why. You can ask his parents, but it's a very common name in the mishpacha. Yeah, or just ask him. I don't know. Anyways, so there were 2 basic versions of the Beit HaLevi's critique that were recorded. If you look at number 2 here, this is how the Radziner himself quoted the Beit HaLevi, and he says, "Achein, im nomar ki hadag haya b'metziut." If it were true that this fish and the ability to take its dye out was known, this is number 2. What here? What's this? No. Va'al kol zeh lo lavshu avotenu v'avod avotenu harei ki'ilu yechem v'kabbalah masora me'avotenu ki zeh hadag v'tzvao eino achilazon v'atchilet avshu b'chol zmanim sheyisamnu bo chazal. כי אפילו נרבה ככל ראיות לא יעילו נגד הקבלה והמסורה. ורק אחרי אשר יברר לנו כי דג זה או מלאכת צבאו נפסק ונשכח מצוותו ידי אדום בשום זמן הזה נפסקה בזה הקבלה לנו דברי ההלכה לראיה. So he said, look, the fact that people didn't use it, it's as if it's a Mesorah that we don't have it anymore. If we had been told by a certain Rishon, look, we've been looking for the Techelet and we lost it, so then maybe you could rediscover it. But since we have no such statement that it was lost, that means the fact that people didn't use it must be, and that they knew that these things existed and they just thought it was wrong. So as the Radziner records the Beit HaLevi, what is his critique? What's his methodological assumption? Why doesn't he like the Radziner's Techelet?
There's no Masorah.
So let's be very careful. But yes,
there's no Masorah that it was lost,
and therefore
it was. And therefore,
what? It's not that there's no Masorah. In this version, it's because there was no Masorah about it. There was no Masorah that was lost, which means that the fact that people didn't use it must point in the direction that there is a Masorah that whatever things we have are not right, or that the way we would diet are wrong. Meaning, what's his assumption? Right? Is he saying that you need a Mesorah? Is his critique that you need Mesorah?
No.
No. What's his critique?
That
He's saying
Mesorah shows that we can't.
correct. Meaning he argued the merits on the basis of the assumption that since people didn't do it, then must point in the direction this is wrong. Right? That's one type of critique. Right? That's a critique that says, look, it's not that it's impossible to bring something without a Mesorah. It's that under certain circumstances, bringing something that people didn't do is a challenge to the Mesorah. The Mesorah points in the direction this is wrong. Right?
Well, if they didn't do it, why aren't they doing it? Seemingly
So that's
because
it.
it's lost.
Right, so that's his saying. And that the fact that they didn't do it
Because
is
it's
an indication
lost.
that this is
Because
wrong.
they did, or they didn't.
Oh no! So he says no. He says they would have said that it's lost. The fact they didn't do it when they never said it was lost must mean that they knew what existed and they said no, that's not the right thing. Again, you can disagree on this assumption, but his assumption isn't that you need Mesorah in a positive sense. It's that right. We sort of have it in Eben. Now, the way the Rav quotes, the way the Soloveitchik family themselves quoted, if you look at number 1, is the following. He says, "No, Yodua mashira bein zikni hagon Rabbi Yosef Dov Alevi bein haadmor hagon miradzin." Right? Everyone knows the machloket my great grandfather had with the Radziner. And the Radziner had said, put Techelet. Hadmor nisa lochiach yisod arbe rayot ki etzeva hazeh be'emet Techelet. And he tried to prove that it was Techelet. Rabbi Yosef Dov ta'an keneged v'amar she'ein rayot esvarot yicholot lochiach shum davar b'milei deshaych l'mesorot shel shal avicha ve'agercha. He said,
There's no positive.
yes, there's no positive Mesorah.
Right.
But he said that certain types of halacha need a positive Mesorah. And even if you're right in Mitziyut, you're wrong. Right? Meaning, even if you would discover that this is the Chila zone, you would be wrong la halacha. Because without a Mesorah, you can't do anything. It's not the reality, it's not the logic which determines, it's the tradition itself.
Didn't we do this already?
We did parts of it. We didn't get through everything. Now, there does seem to be evidence against both of these critiques. If you look at Maharil, for example, Maharil said, "Usvarahu," in the middle of a different discussion, says, "He said maybe it'll happen that Techelet will be found." Says the Smag said that there is this chilazon in the Yam HaMelech, and he gave hints of how to, and he said it's not so hard to find. Now, what does the Maharil therefore indicate?
It's possible.
It's possible to find it out in Mesorah, and that you would use simanim, right? Now, this machlokas is actually a very broad machlokas about whether archaeology can be used as evidence in halacha at all, right? And archaeology in related fields, right? Similar machlokas about manuscripts and things like that. So, Rav Shechter very much feels that it can. And his proof is from the following very, very bizarre Gemara. Very bizarre Gemara. It's a series of very bizarre Gemaras. Everything in the Gemara is weird. But in the middle of that Gemara, Rabbi Baruch says that and he said, I was once walking and I came across a certain merchant.
Frog.
What?
Frog.
Taya? No, this is a merchant. And this merchant shows him all types of wild things. Right?
Oh, this is the first one.
Yes, this is the first one. So in the middle of that story, he says, so at one point he said to him, please, let me show you the people who died in the Midbar. You know, the 600,000 Jews who died in the desert. Ozli, Chazinu v'damu command mivzamu v'ganu aparkid, Zakifa barche dechad minayu v'ayal taya tute barke ki rachiv gamla v'zakifa rumche v'lo nagabe. Good, so what did he see?
Saw bones?
He said, first of all, they looked like they were. Did they look dead? No, they looked ivsimu. They looked like beautiful. They looked like they were just sleeping. And he said, and they were so tall that one of their knees was up, and he just went under the knee with his camel and with his spear up in his hand, and it didn't touch him. Okay, that's how tall the people were in the midbar. Don't ask me what that means. I have no idea. Okay? That's not the point.
All in Torah.
Paski chad akarna de tchelta de chad minayu lo mistagilan. Amar li, right? So he said, I took some of the tzitzis off of one of them, right? And we couldn't move. And the merchant said to me, Amar li, dilma shakalt midai minayu. Maybe you took something, right? It's like one of these, right? Sci-fi movies or Indiana Jones movies, right? You took something from the mummy and now you are frozen in place. I don't know.
That big, how would he ever get tzitzit?
I don't know. They were dragging on the floor. I don't know. So he said.
Would have been the size of his horse.
So they got frozen. They couldn't move. So Hadre Dgmiri Deman the Shakal Mida Minayin Lo Mistagile. I have a Masorah, a tradition that if you steal something from the Midbar, they won't let you leave. So Azal Ahadarte Vahadar Mistagilan. So I returned the tzitzis and he let us go. There are so many stories on questions in the Zagadata. Please don't ask me.
How did he return the tzitzis if he couldn't move?
I don't know. Okay. When I got back, I told them the story, and they said, Amar li kol abba chamra, kol bar barchana sichsa. What did they say? Bikitzur, you're an idiot. Big Yitzur, they made fun of him. And they said, what were you doing? What were you thinking? Why did you want their tzitzis? Because there's a machlokas that we'll see later on. Are tzitzis 3 strings doubled off? Yes, this was their issue. Was you clearly wanted to figure out how many tzitzis you're supposed to have. And there's machlokas, 3 or 4. Right, 3 doubled or 4 doubled. And that's what you were trying to figure out. And that's why you're selling the tzitzis.
And it's showing that because he's using proof.
And they said, so he said, so stupid, you idiot. He said, so you couldn't take it with you. What should you have done?
Ask.
No, count. Yeah. So you weren't taking. So you just count, right? Moron, just count, right? Now, what does your Shechter point to in this Gemara?
You can use evidence.
First of all, you can use archaeology in general in halacha. Second of all, you can use archaeology specifically about tzitzis and Techelet, right?
He could have also just.
He said, "Yeah, okay, you can." Kasha on Maisa. Maybe you can't find the Mason. I don't know. Again, it's a weird Agadata, and I don't know everything what it means. But Rosh Hashem's point is that the assumption of the Agadata is that, methodologically speaking, you're allowed to use archaeology. You're allowed to believe your eyes. You don't need an active Masorah, even in the context of tzitzis and Techeles. Right? And he notes that the Smag has a similar statement about tefillin. The Mikol Makom Nogo Beretz Edom Beretz Yisrael Kedivrei Rabbeinu Shlomo. There's a machloket Rashi and Tosafot about tefillin. Remember?
Yeah.
Considering, remember the order,
yeah.
Right? Ukedivrei Rabbeinu Moshe. V'gam Sholchu K'zam Eretz Rosh Hanafim B'Yimachal Kever Yechezkel Matzah Tefillin Yishanim Ma'od K'sidra Rabbeinu Moshe v'Rashi. And he said that the minhag is to use Rashi tefillin. And he said, and once I heard about people who in Eretz Yisrael who said they found Yechezkel's kever
And had Rabbeinu Tam.
and they had Rashi tefillin in it, and that proves that you're allowed to use it.
Oh.
Right? Which seems to be a good proof, again, that the Gemara is okay. The Gemara doesn't think you need active Masorah. The Gemara says you're allowed to use archaeology. They used it Lamaisa. Right? And that's so the argument of the Radziner or Shechter, right, in modern Techelet is that you're allowed to use this type of evidence. You're allowed to use this type of evidence. Again, assuming you're convinced by the evidence, that's enough. You don't need a Masorah. You don't need a... So what's the response? And if you look at...
Agadata doesn't actually prove it.
So you could do that. If you look at the font on the right hand side of it, this is from Rav Shechter, Nefesh Harav. He explains. He says, "Zeh kama dorot she'eino yodem hayniu dam achilazon, dag achilazon, va'afilo etzlachnu l'shachzer yediad inachod techniat madiyot b'maftim beruim v'kol makom l'tochal yediad zol yedez od b'chalam misorav yashan lev sok b'zeh l'dina al pi yediad madiyot b'li misor l'chatid." Where he quotes from the Rav's position that without Masorah you can't do this. Right? You need an active Masorah. But if you look at the here, right? This is the footnote in the Nefesh Harav. Here, see? Mm-hmm. The second paragraph. That's Rosh Hashanah quoting the Rav. But he says, "L'chora lefi divrei Rabbeinu yotzei shlo olam yefsher lavi rayot archeologiot l'shum beirei halacha." Right? The Rav seemed to think that methodologically speaking, you're not allowed to use archaeology. Ubipshuto davar zeh tamua ma'od. He said, I don't understand that. It's shocking. Well, how does he know? He said, look at that weird Gemara in Bava Basra. And look at that weird smog about tefillin. He said, it's not true. you see that you are allowed. And if you want just the summary, right? Jafter summarizes it on the left. Okay? And he summarizes, I cut out the piece from the Talmud Dekrav, Chaim Kanievsky, said, Rav Virgil Schechter observes that the fact that rabbis were open to considering the tzitzit of the Dora Midbar as a factor in deciding whether to rule in accordance with Beit Shammai Hill seems to prove that halacha does consider archaeological evidence in rendering halachic decisions. On the other hand, now tell me whether this makes any sense. Daniel, what do you think? What I'm about to read. I'm not compelled, but Reb Chaim Kanievsky and Shlomo Aviner conclude that Rav Rachana's failure to derive halachic conclusions from discovery indicates that Hashem did not want us to draw halachic conclusions from discovery of the past. Right? The way Reb Chaim Kanievsky and Rav Aviner defended is say, no, the fact that
He
Hashem,
tried, but didn't succeed.
right, he didn't succeed in that. Hashem made him not think about the obvious of just counting means that Hashem stepped in to prove that we don't rely on archaeology.
I don't know if I would use the
Raise your hand if you're convinced.
I don't know if I would use the word Hashem here, but the whole concept that he was there, assuming this is what it's trying to say, he was there, and he didn't end up getting a response. Does
Right, that's what they're saying. That it's that
I don't know if I'd use the word Hashem did that,
all
but
all the Rabbanim there.
just said count. What's wrong with
Go
you?
count.
right, but he did it, so
Implying
why
that-
not?
no.
I mean, what is he, stupid? Like, is he literally just stupid? Like, no. There's a
Well,
reason
you
why
could-
it didn't
you could assume
happen.
you're
Made a
not
mistake. That's why they made fun of him.
When you're surrounded by people who
Obviously it's an agartha. It's trying to prove something. So it's saying, oh, he tried to use archaeological evidence to find out if we use 3 or 4 strings, right? So it's saying, oh, this concept, people obviously try to use this, but then at the end of the day, he didn't. So it's saying, you can try using it, but you can't actually have a final conclusion from it. That's what.
Okay, so we'll come back to some of the other sources on this page, but I think you see already that this is really a meta question. Right? The question of Techelet, there's 2 very different questions. One is, are you convinced by the evidence? Right? That's one level of questions. But the second level of questions is, even if you're convinced, theoretically, does it matter? And then you have these different overarching assumptions about the way halacha works. I mean, does halacha... Yes.
We said before that worst case scenario, if you're wrong, there's no problem with it because you can have colored strings.
Okay.
So even if you don't believe you can use archaeological evidence, there's a 50-50 chance you could or can't use it. So you put on Techeles, and if you could use it and it's the right Techeles, great. But if you put on Techeles, you can't use it. All right, it doesn't matter.
Good. So
or
so
if
you
it's
remember,
wrong, it
right?
doesn't matter.
So I put your home visual parla up. Good. So
I read Rabbi Ginsburg's source sheet because it was in English, so it took like 10 seconds. And there was a thing on there that you can't...
the source on what? A modern Techelet? He's going on
Yeah,
Techelet?
something on Techelet.
Okay.
It said one of the concepts there, it started with a K, Ka something.
Okay, so we're going to come back to Kala Ila.
Yeah.
Kala Ila. Yeah.
You can't dye it like Techelet.
Okay, we're going to come back to it. Okay, so I think, guys, so I think the last thing we'll do is say, okay, is there a problem with wearing it if it's wrong? We'll get to that. But before we get to that, I want to outline these methodological assumptions. I think they're important to think about. You're right. Meaning, at the end of the day, you could say, look, I'm not convinced, but there's nothing to lose. Or you could say, no, I'm not convinced and there is something to lose. Right? But the first question is to say, what would it mean to be convinced? Right? So before we get to those, and I did put sources on that, which is it going to be Baltosif? Is it a problem of Kala Ilan? Right? Before we get to that, we want to focus on this. So far we've seen that you have Rav Schechter's approach, which is, I'm convinced somewhat of the Metzius. Now, if you remember that Rav Schechter had argued that all you need is to be somewhat convinced, because then Savik D'Oraisa L'Chumra. Now, there are some who say, look, I'm not convinced, but Savik D'Oraisa doesn't apply here, because Savik D'Oraisa is only if, once I do the act, I'll know I'll fulfill the mitzvah. In this case, if I'm wrong, it's nothing, so Savik D'Oraisa doesn't apply. Right? But methodological assumption number 1 is basically, look, I'm somewhat convinced of the evidence, and all I need is a suffix. And once it's suffix, I can use it because all the negatives can be solved, and we'll have to come back to them. But fundamentally, right, archaeology counts, and therefore, as long as the evidence comes in, I'm somewhat convinced, that's fine. At the other extreme, you have the position who says it's not about evidence. You could be 100% convinced this is Techelet and still be wrong, because you need an active Masorah. Right? That's the Beis HaLevi is quoted by the Rav. And then you have those who say, look, you don't need it, or the Masorah pushes in the opposite direction, right? Or people who just said, look, it's not necessarily right, and therefore, if it's not necessarily right, you're not chayiv, because Safek D'Oraisa, right? That's like a level 2. So let's look through some of the sources. Then at the end, we'll see yet a fourth approach. So we had seen the first 2 pages of Ray Churchiner's source sheet, I think, right? Yeah, so we had seen Rabbi Miller. So you remember, Rabbi Miller had said, first of all, the authenticity he wasn't convinced of, and the second was that you should have had a Masorah, right? So he has both critiques.
I mean, if you just discovered it now, how could you have a Masorah? Meaning
that we should have had a Masorah. The fact that we don't indicates that it's bad.
No Masorah is because we didn't have the technology to possibly
In a Chanami.
beforehand. Like,
In a Chanami. Now, what type of evidence, if you wanted to just argue on the evidence, so what might you push against? So we saw one piece of evidence to push against, and the Gemara says it's like a fish. Right, that it's like a fish. So maybe you take that as meaning it literally...
It has to be a fish.
It has to be a fish.
And the dye has to need moments to...
Good, so let's just go through it. Let's go from Yudchet. So the Gemara in Megillah says, Amar Tzvilin Fengadosh Baruch Hu Shalom L'choi nasat lem sadot kramim L'nasat arim gvaot L'chai nasat lem artzot L'nasat yamim munarot Amar L'kulan shricham l'chal yidei chalazon Shenemar sunei temunei chal. Right, so we have one Gemara that says that where did the chilazon appear? In the rivers of Zvulun.
Which don't touch any river.
Good. So one piece of evidence you might marshal against it is to say
it's obviously already inaccurate.
Right, that the Gemara says that it was found in the Chelek of Zvulun, which means in the rivers. This is found in Mediterranean, right, which is not in the Chelek of Zvulun because Zvulun is inland.
But you say the opposite also. How can it be found in the rivers of Zvulun if there are no rivers in Zvulun?
No, there are rivers, like streams. But on the other hand, you have other Gemaras that say, in Shabbos, right, now how would you push back and say, no, that's not true? So look at the Gemara in Shabbos. The Gemara says, Yogvim, Elu tzayadei chilazon, sulamot shel tzur vad chaifa. The Gemara defines the Yogvim as the people who hunt the chilazon from Tzur to Haifa. Where is that? Right? Yeah, on the coast of what? Mediterranean, which means in other Gemaras it says the chilazon was found, at least also, along the entire coast. Where's Tzur? Tyre. Where's Tyre? Lebanon, meaning on the Mediterranean. Right? Which means that you have some Gemaras that say that maybe this is found more inland in streams, but you have other Gemaras that say, no, indeed, this is a Mediterranean animal. Good. If you look at the Gemara in the Sifrei number 20, Amar Rabbi Yossi, Pam achar ha'iti mahalech mikziv letzur matzati zaken echad. I was once walking from Kziv to Tzur. So again, Tzur. I was walking on the coast. Amarti lo parnescha ben ma, and I said, what is your job? Amar lo michilazon. He said, I make money from the chilazon, which again indicates that they were found on the Mediterranean coast. Amarti lo b'chimatziu. He says, is it really found there? Amalo, Hashemayim, Shish Makom Bayam, Shemutal Ba'arim, Zamiyot Makiferoto. He said, yeah, there's a place in the mountains. Ve'elech Adam Sholech L'Shem Shemet Makisheroto Mani Mok Bimkomo, Amarti Nikur Shagonim Tzatzikim Lavo. He said, yeah, there's a hidden place where you can find it in the mountains, and no one goes there. So I don't know whether this proves for or against. Or on the one hand, it clearly is along the coast, but he says that he finds it more in the mountainous region. So I don't know, proof against, if for. Now, another reason you might think that it's not here is if you really think that it was actively hidden. Right? Now, what might give you that indication? So if you look at the Gemara, the Midrash in number 21, in Chaf Aleph, the Bamidbar Rabbah says, Mitzvah lavi lavenu tchelet v'yasa, ematay kshut tchelet, v'achshav ein lanu elavan, shet tchelet nigna. So the R Midrashim would say maybe it was hidden. And maybe you would read that as it's like actively hidden. I don't know. Yarach HaShulchan writes in 22, V'dah shezeh shanim tzurot, she'achad itpayer shematzah chilozon, v'asam minut chelev, v'yamshich achrav eidin Hashem, ach lo haya lo shomea migdol yador mechlal Yisrael, nadel davar ki yavo goel tzedek b'mherav yameinu amein. And there were certain poskim who took this approach, that no, it is actively hidden until Mashiach. And that's why you know that this is the wrong Techelet, because it's actively hidden. Now, the next question you would ask is, okay, does our chilazon fit it? So as we said, in the Gemara you might read it as an actual fish. Who thought it was an actual fish? The Rambam seems to think it was a fish, because in Chav Gimel, what does he call it? Dog. Thank you. Dog shedomen olein atchelet. But as I said, who defends the position that it might be a a snail? Rashi, because Rashi in Chavdalit calls it a tolat, which is in modern Hebrew, it's a wormy thing. A snail, a worm, anything in that family is going to be.
Rabbi, there are no rivers in
So I don't know what to tell you. Now another problem is the question of, according to the Gemara says that it comes from what part of the animal? The blood. So you might say, oh, well, this doesn't come from the blood, it comes from a secretion.
Well, the Gemara doesn't know the difference.
It's only a secretion like after they die or possibly when
Oh, so what? So
it comes from a vein inside of them.
Good. So, but how would you defend it? You would say
The Gemara has previous evidence where they don't know the difference between blood and
good. So part of it is they don't know the difference, and the second is if you look in Tosfos and Chav Hey, Tosfos actually says right. He says this is not normal type of blood. It's blood which is right, like in a particular place, it's holed up, right, and it just bursts out, which means it's in some sort of separate gland. Which means that Rabbeinu Tam already understands that the dam that we're talking about is not blood running through the veins; it's some other blood or something else, right, which is in some separate gland or separate.
Accurate to what actually happened.
Correct, right? So for each thing, basically, you could argue on the merits and go back and forth. Now, another problem is how long does it take? So if you look at the Gemara in Shabbos and Ayin Hey, the Gemara in Shabbos is talking about hunting or catching a chilazon. The Gemara says, "Hatzal chilazon v'potzo eno chayav elachat." If you hunt, you trap a chilazon, you squeeze it, burst it. You're only chayav once on Shabbos. Yehuda chayav shtaim. Yehuda says twice. Amar Rava, my time of the Rabbanan. Ksavri ein disha l'gdulei karka. Right, Rava thinks you're potter because he thinks the issur of threshing is only for things that grow from the ground. So why aren't you chayav for killing? Maybe you squeeze the chilazon after it was already dead. So you didn't kill it on Shabbos. Rava said, no, the cases where you killed it while you did squeeze it out while it was alive. But if you accidentally killed it, you didn't mean to kill it, and therefore it was misasek. You were involved in something else. Now what does that indicate? That when are you getting the blood out or the secretion out?
It's alive.
When it's alive. So the Gemara says, but isn't it true that on Shabbos you're always liable if the malacha is the inevitable consequence of what you're doing? So you're squeezing it to death. Even if you couldn't care less about killing it, that's what you're doing. So what does the Gemara say? No, you're actively trying to avoid its death. Why? Because as long as it's alive,
They can keep producing.
no, that's when the dye is going to be good. So what does it sound like in the Gemara?
That when it dies,
Right, that you can only do it when it's alive or maybe moments after death. So those who argue in favor of it say, it's true, the secretion can only happen within hours. And those who argue against say, it doesn't sound like hours in the Gemara, it sounds like seconds. Hours is too long.
no, isn't it? Once it dies, it automatically secretes it.
So you can do it within a few. So again, so if you look in 27, you'll see that Patil followers argue that the muir secretion loses its dying power a few hours after the snail's death. Where the people who support it say, look, the Gemara proves our point. Because the Gemara says that you have a very short period of time to die, and therefore, this is true of the murex. Within a few hours, you can't do it anymore. That's what the Gemara describes. People who don't think the murex is the chilazon say, no, take the Gemara very literally. The Gemara says, it sounds like moments, right? This doesn't help that the Gemara is speaking not of a few hours, but mere moments after death.
Is there a way to replicate how they would do it back then without our technology?
There's no way of knowing how they would do it then. Okay. Now, the modern posek who's really sort of taken every issue up has been Rav Asher Weiss. But what you see, again, I haven't, right, as you see as you go through these, you have, again, just to remind ourselves of the methodological assumptions, you have certain poskim who seem to be saying that what? Fundamentally, I'm willing to accept that you found the chilazon, I'm just not convinced by this particular identification. Other people who say, we don't need it, right? We're not convinced that we don't need it. There are others who say it doesn't matter. You need a Masorah, right? Even if you were right, you'd be wrong. So look at the next sources, and you'll see that all these things keep going up. Roger Weiss says, "Ra'iti bazeh charadochim shekadu chachamim shonim at shenidmeh shabbat kol yotzei min hashamayim shehinei nimtza chilazon at chelad v'hua parfora." Right? I hear all these people who claim that it's as if the word of God came out from heaven. They found the Techelet. And as if we have to defend ourselves, those of us who don't wear Techelet. But he says, he said, my first critique is that we haven't found all the pieces of evidence. I'm not convinced. If you look at the article in Number Chavtet by Menachem Epstein, he writes, the Midrash Tanchuma relates that the Techelet was Nignaz. Is it possible to reinstate a mitzvah that was Nignaz? The Radvaz and Maril both say that Techelet is theoretically available. One need only identify and find the Chilazon in order to reinstate Techelet. Additionally, the Ravid records exactly what Rav Shonai would tie as Techelet. Rav Shonai is clearly referring to something actually performed in his day, since he says about a particular detail b'nahag lasotel. Therefore, we know that Techelet was extant at least 850 CE, or 100 years after the Chumah was completed. Exactly what the word Nignaz means is now unclear, since Techelet was extant after that time. So these are the, right, so again, he's defending it. The people who say, whatever, right, there's no reason to believe we don't have it. Chaim Tversky in 30 writes, moreover, although it must be acknowledged that Masorah is a very strong force in halacha, by no means does Masorah create a certainty of fact. For example, what could be a greater matter of Masorah than the method of making tefillin? Only sofer were involved, and each sofer was trained to be by an older sofer. Yet, although the order of the parashiyot is in a set tefillin must be correct for the tone to be valid, there's a lack of absolute certainty as to what is the correct order, with no fewer than 4 differing opinions. If the halacha would demand absolute certainty in the essential elements of a mitzvah, then we would not wear tefillin today because of the area of disagreement as to the correct order of the parsha. But we do wear tefillin. Evidently, the framework of halacha allows the possibility of error, and it instructs us to follow the most reasonable likelihood based on ro chazak omdar and any method of determination of fact accepted in the halachic framework. So this is like their Schechter-like argument, which is you're allowed to take an archaeology, and what level of proof do you need it raised to?
High.
Not so high, like preponderance of the evidence. It doesn't have to be that you can't have kashas. He's saying it's legitimate for us to, right? You can argue, but he says, but if you've come to the conclusion there's good reason to believe that, is that enough? Yeah. Now, but we saw that Rav Asher Weiss's first critique is on the level of Metziah, which is I'm just not convinced. Right? So then he goes in Lamed Aleph. It says, "O ta'an man kota, shlomatzin b'chol olam chai chayada go sheretz achar shemigufa afshar lafik tzeva amid el min haporforia mishum kol ze yesh lazik d'rav shachin chilazon ze chilazon atchelet." So he said another proof that the people bring is that look, the Gemara says that the chilazon blood was the only that and indigo created the same color, and this had staying power and indigo didn't, which is true of our chilazon. Right, this is one of the main proofs that they bring is that the modern thing, it has the same color as indigo, and it lasts. It's a permanent dye. So which is a decently good proof, right? So what does Rav Asher say back? He says, and this is the fourth sort of methodological assumption. He says, look, first of all, I'm not convinced by the Metziah. But the second of all, he says, look, halacha, science, history works on circumstantial evidence and likelihoods. Halacha needs direct proof, or direct proof. Right, to give a very simple example, in an American court of law, if you said, I saw Jack running after Jill, saying, I'm going to kill you, right, with a 12-inch knife in his hand, and as I turned the corner, I missed him for 5 seconds, and I turned the corner, and Jill is dead on the floor with that same knife through her heart, and Jack is screaming, I killed her. Right? Will he be convicted?
Yeah.
Almost definitely. In halacha? No. Because you need edus. You need testimony, direct proof. So, what do you see? Rav Asher introduces a new type of critique, which is, what counts as evidence in the halachic system is different. In science, history, circumstantial evidence is proof. In halacha, proof is
direct.
Is direct, and therefore he says, "Yodei ani shederach hashiva zu achen mekubelet betchumei madar shonim uvikar bearcheologia." So I understand that this circumstantial evidence is all the rage, especially in archaeology. That archaeology, by definition, is estimation and guess. When they find things, they try to guess logically. And whatever makes most sense is what we can conclude is likely.
I don't think it's fair to compare evidence for Techelet versus evidence to convict someone.
Okay, that was just my illustration, but this is his general point. Even if you don't buy that,
but
again,
we learned that in halacha we need definite proof, but we only learn that from witnesses in court cases.
Okay, and that's the response of everyone else. Is what are you talking about? In Eidos we need that, and everywhere else we take all types of evidence into account. We do our best. Right, but Rav Asher doesn't buy it, and he says, "Lo kach machshav halacha ve'zeh lo svata." This is not the thought nor language of halacha. Hashara ino ra'aya klal v'ikar. Guessing, estimations, approximations are not hypotheses, are not proofs. Ukeneged kol hashara lo'olam hashara lo acherot. For every hypothesis, there's a counter hypothesis. V'gam lo ya'ala dimyunenu hasharot kol shein la'asharot ela kol mashmun v'machshav halacha v'darka shel Torah. This is no place in Torah. That what you said, there are signs, and signs sometimes in halacha count. He said, he said, a guess, an hypothesis is not a sign. Siman is a direct proof. Like this was your shirt. How do you know it's your shirt? It had a stain on the third, right next to the third button. Right? Not like circumstantial evidence. It's even simanim, even when we look for signs, we look for direct signs. And he says, simanim ba'guna v'gerach hadom shem zem gufa davar shanu danim ba. It has to be a sign on the object. Keina simanim shal min chalazon b'gmor menachon mach inyan asherot analadim simanim. And then in Lamed Bet he says, Tamani shadamei chachamim yireh Hashem mechadshim halacha al pi ketvei chachmei Yavana otakim. And then he says, you have evidence from Pliny, right? We saw the Greek. He said, I argue methodologically because I don't think that has room in halacha. I think that all evidence in halacha must be come from Bali Misara. Says, Halo Afikid Chazal Rishonim HaKadoshim Shemesh Ba'avav Yirav V'silu Don Midor L'Dor Mesirat Nefesh Mitoch Dikduk Atzum B'Kotzel Shiud Shigir Sar Rabbah V'Shibidei Hadaka. He said, even in halacha, where everyone who's passing down halacha cares about the system, we see different confusions and text errors. What, people don't care as much about Greek text? You can't believe that there weren't mistakes in the Greek text? Lamed Gimel, he says, he says, you'll tell me you found all of these shells of the chilazon. Garbage. Was that the only dye? Maybe they did die with the Murex trunculus. But who says it was chilazon? It was a rare dye. It was royal clothing. It sits in kahuna and tzitzit. It was important. It was expensive. That was some other blue. You have no proof, no signature from the Kohen Gadol. And his last piece, he said, maybe Yudavka wouldn't expect to find any evidence of the Techelet, because maybe the Romans destroyed it. And therefore the fact that we have it is proof that it's not the right one. He said, maybe that was some Roman fake meant to trick Jews. And that's what you're seeing. Again, I said, I'll throw hypotheses at you from today till tomorrow. So if you summarize what you have, right? So you have, first question is, do we even accept this type of evidence? You're going to have two schools. those who say we accept this type of evidence and we're convinced because Rashi says that it is snail, and Rabbeinu Tam says it's not really blood, it's some sort of secretion, and because just like the Gemara says, it doesn't last for that long after it dies, and it's the only standing blue color that we find, and it is created naturally through sunlight.
The Gemara kind of says that we could use our flesh.
Correct, and then you have all these people who say that it could last and things like that. And then you have the people who say, in theory, so then you have the people who say, look, in theory, you could accept it, I'm just not convinced, because it sounds like it's a few minutes, this takes a few hours. The Rambam follows literally the Gemara that it's not a chilazon, but it's not a snail, it's a fish. And maybe you take blood literally, and this is not the blood, it's a secretion. Right, so that's machloket 1. Machloket 2 is even if I accepted the mitzias,
you can't use
either I can't use it because, look, I'm not 100% convinced and therefore I don't need it, and that's the Safek D'Rabbanan question. Rav Shechter says if I'm not sure, do I wear it? Yes, why do I wear it? Safek D'Oraisa L'Chumra, and the people who criticize him say, no, this is not called Safek D'Oraisa. Now we'll introduce something that we mentioned in last year, 2 years ago. In addition, they might say maybe there's a halachic problem. Daniel, what halachic problem might there be? So one possibility would be Bal Tosef, right? Maybe Bal Tosef, though we saw you could go both ways in that, right? You could say maybe it's Bal Tosef because, right, the Beis Halevi said it's Bal Tosef because I think I'm being Mekayim the mitzvah. Or you could say no, it's not Bal Tosef because I'm trying to be Mekayim the mitzvah. And it's no worse than Lavan. Now another problem you might say is maybe this is under the Gzeira of Kala Ilan, which is something we'll come back to, which is that the Gemara had a Gzeira against wearing Kala Ilan, right, indigo, because you might use it to replace Techelet, and you might wear it with shatnez, and it's false, it's not the real one, so you might say maybe this is under Kala Ilan.
Only for tzitzis, etc.
Yeah. Now, what would the response be? We'll come back to Kala Ilan, so I don't want to get bogged down in it now, but what would the response be?
It's not indigo.
Or the response would be maybe that, or just right, or he would just say, look, that's because you were using indigo and you were trying to make fake Techelet. Here, I'm doing my best. I'm trying to use Techelet. It's wrong, but that's not Kal Ilan. Another critique we'll see is the Min Kanaf question.
Why would, at that time, would people on purpose?
Because it's cheaper. Because indigo is cheaper. And then the problem is...
They made the Gezerah just to make sure people don't cheat people out.
Because people wore tzitzis, which was kilayim. And if you wear it with indigo, you're not allowed to do it, so it's an aveira.
I see.
Right, so you had these swindlers would lead people to violate Isurim. Sorry, what else was I going to just say? Oh, right, another problem, which again we're going to come back to, and that's why I'm not focusing on. Rabbi Yashiv has this problem, is the min kanaf, is that according to certain Rishonim, the beged must be the same color as the tzitzis, and if your tzitzit are white, the only heter to have any blue is real Techelet. But we'll see, that's not so simple. We'll see the sugya of min kanaf, but it's worth mentioning that now.
Get a blue stripe.
On the other hand, there are people who respond and say, no. The problem isn't, right, so that was level 2, which is saying, look, maybe it's right, but we don't need it, because Safek D'Oraisa in this case doesn't apply, because even by the end you don't know whether you're Makayim, and there's all these potential halachic problems that come up, so it's not worth it. Right? Then there are the 2 more extreme shita, which are, even if we knew it was right, it would be wrong, because certain areas of halacha need misora dafka, and reality is irrelevant. Right? And what's the last methodological possibility, which is Rosh Weiss, which is against it, which is that we already said that nothing to lose. That was in favor. Is the Rosh Weiss position, which is
definite proof
that halacha doesn't accept this, even like the whole notion of hypotheses and things like that, and circumstantial evidence just doesn't count in halacha, and therefore you're just barking up the wrong tree here. Right? This you can give me hypotheses forever; they don't matter. Now, again, you could have a middle position, which is to say, look, maybe, right? There's all the people in the middle, which say maybe in theory I would accept it, and maybe I'm even somewhat convinced, but because there are ancillary halachic problems. If I was really convinced it was Techelet, I would let you do it. But because I'm not 100% convinced, so then I become worried about Kala Ilan and Min Techelet and Bal Tosef and all that stuff. Yeah, exactly.
How can you look at that as 873? Well, really, I'm telling you right now, if I went to
I gave you in 10 just that the Marid al-Ghazi clearly supports Rav Shechter's argument that if you're in a case of Safek D'Oraisa L'Chumra does indicate that you should be Mekayim mitzvah. Not that, so if you look, for example, in 10, he just says, Ve'in l'akshel Rambam v'nachar l'achid d'chev the EU sir leil inyan isher kol svig b'tam min haTorah imkain gam b'sav yoledet etc. And he says, "Aval b'mitzvah asay im nistabim mekayim mitzvah o im chayav l'asar mitzvah Torah." In a mitzvah asay, if you're not sure whether you have to be mekayim it, chayav misafik l'kayim asay d'chev d'asay alam elav. He says you're obligated. Not only you're obligated, even if it's a suffix lav, even if you might violate a prohibition. Why? Because the normal rule is if you have a lav and an asay, so asay dochalos asay, right? That you perform the positive mitzvah and it overrides the negative one, if that's the only way to be mekayim it. So, based on this, you would defend Rav Shechter's position, saying not only is it true that when you have Safek D'Oraisa, you should go l'chumra, even if there are these ancillary potential halachic problems. What's the halacha? Follow the mitzvah asay, and that will override the potential halachic issues. So that would be a good evidence in favor of the position to wear it. There is one more possible question, which is this entire sugya relevant? And here's the question: is it really true that the chilazon means a particular fish or snail, or would any dye from an animal that has these properties count as the chilazon?
You mean
what would you think?
Effectively, if it had the same purpose.
Correct. So this is actually a machloket. So if you look in 11, the simple pshat of the Tosefta, which is Chazal, is that it has to be the chilazon. Techelet en kshera ela min chilazon shalom min chilazon psula. The Tosefta is pretty clear. However, there is a suffix, whatever that creature is.
But what if chilazon is just a term for anything that can produce a dye that's colored?
So you would think maybe, but it seems like he's referring to something specific in the Tosefta. That's why he goes out of its way to say it's only from the chilazon. But if you look at the Techelet Yisrael, the Techelet Yisrael is actually not so sure lahalacha that we pass in that way. He says, "Amnam hadavar shani mesupak bo be'emet tzarich l'tchelet chilazon dafka." He said, "I'm not sure if you actually need the chilazon." Dinei k'fi shanir me'arambam the b'tchelet shebigdei kahuna ain't tzarich chilazon. He said, at least by bigdei kahuna, the Rambam is explicit that you need the blue, but it doesn't have to be from the chilazon.
So according to the Rambam, it has to be a fish, not a snail.
Well,
it doesn't have to be a specific.
So the problem is that he notes after the ellipsis that said I would have thought that once the Rambam tells me you don't need a particular creature for Bigdei Kahuna, the same would be true for tzitzis, because it never says you need a chilazon on the pasuk. What does it say? Techelet. The problem is, he says the problem is the Rambam doesn't sound that way. The Rambam seems to distinguish between Techelet and the Techelet of Tzitzis and Techelet of Bigdei Kahuna. But this is another avenue for saying that maybe we should use the modern Techelet, which is maybe our entire assumption that we have to get worked up about which one they used is just wrong. Any living, any animal that would create a dye that would fit the parameters, a permanent blue dye that is indigo-like, would be kosher.
What if chilazon, since the pasuk itself doesn't actually say chilazon, right?
That's what the very Yisrael says.
Right. So maybe chilazon at the time was the Masorah, but since we lost that Masorah, we can use anything that recreates.
Right, and maybe that's what the very Yisrael is getting at. So that would be a totally another direction to take this in, which is maybe this entire discussion. Yeah, it's pretty wild. It's against the simple pshat in the Tosefta, and to be fair, the simple pshat in all the Rishonim. But at any rate, I think hopefully that gives you at least a summary of some of the issues we've talked about and the methodological assumptions that go into this. What we'll see next is we're going to, I think, spend one day on the Seder issues. Remember the Gemara said that love and Makev Techelet isn't about love and Makev Techelet, it's about order. So we'll deal with that.
Is there a almost like a minhag, I guess, issue? Let's say if like your family doesn't wear Techelet, can you if you think it's good or not?
Not a minhag issue.
So you could do it even if it's
I don't think that's an issue. I mean, you'll find in general that I tend to not care about these things at all.
Well,
I'm not convinced by. I don't think family minhagim are halachically binding.
My family.
I don't think they're binding.
At
Nikuda.
all to
No.
any.
No.
In any.
No. In any real halachic way, no. I don't think this is a minhag anyways, but I think this is a halachic question.
Well, yeah,
but no, I don't think they're binding.
Well, the mice said that is what should we wear it?
Well,
I'm not posting for you.
Or, but
Again,
I'm not saying posting specifically, but
if you're convinced that this might be the right techelet, and you're convinced by the argument that even if it might be, then it's worth wearing it because savik d'oraisa l'chomra, then you should wear it.
What about the different types?
If you are convinced either that it doesn't matter, that we need him as Sorah, that this is categorically wrong, or that if you wear it, you're not convinced by the Metzias and you're worried about the halachic problems, Bal Tosif and Kala Elon and all that stuff, then
should you wear it?
Don't wear it.
Should you wear it on cotton tissues?
we're going to get to cotton and wool. We're going to get to that. The answer, I wear it.
Is that cotton? That's not
No, this is
that's
wool.
Yeah.
No, this is wool.
I mean,
No, you have to wear it on wool. It has to be wool.
It can't be on cotton.
No, Techelet has to be on wool. Has to be on wool.
You mean it has to be in this?
Techelet has to be the string has to be wool. The string has to be wool. Techelet is always on wool. Always on wool.
My father wears techelet, but those are different types of tzitzis. Like the way you tie it. Like what about
You
that?
tie them differently. Yes, you tie them differently. But we'll get to that. We're going to get to time.
Is that as?
We're going to get to it. We're going to get to it. We're going to get to it. This is, for example, Ravid, right? 2 strings.
But
And the tying is grot tying. But we'll get to these issues. These are the sugyas that are coming up, which is we've already talked about 1, 2, 4. We still have to talk about tying, kesher elyon, order, color of the beged. We have to get to all those.
so there's a
sugyas.
bunch of them. There's how many of them are blue, and then also how you tie them. Those are 2 separate.
There are a million questions. We're going to do them. That's the next sugya. I said these sugyas are fascinating. I said we had to pause to deal with the modern Techelet question, but now we have to get back to the classic questions. How do you tie? How many strings? What's ma'akev? All that stuff. Okay?